محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. We begin in the name of Allah and we ask Him to send His timeless, choicest, most abundant peace and blessings and mercy upon our dear beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his wives and his family members and his companions and all those who follow their example till the day of judgment, praying that Allah bestows His favor upon us and includes us amongst them. Allahumma ameen. Just to begin, so we can get populated with questions or comments or ideas, we have a Slido. It's not necessarily for questions. You could add your questions if you so choose. The Slido code is 396-4808, 396-4808. Do you mind writing on the board, Adam? 396-4808. So that's the Slido code. What do I want there? Not your questions. Like if we have time, we'll get to them. But there's a couple of options, 4 options. 1, something Islamic, a story, or a concept, or a ruling that you struggle to accept intellectually. Struggle to understand it, to wrap your head around it. It's option number 1. Thank you, Adam. 396-4808. Option number 1, something Islamic, a story in Islam or a concept or a verse or a hadith maybe that you struggle to accept, and why. You could add the why. Number 2, you don't have to do all of them. If you have all of them, go for it. If you only have one, that's fine. We probably won't get to all of them, but if you populate it, we will get to them eventually. Get to them and do what? You'll find out. Number 2 is a evil deed that you know is evil, haram, and you struggle to abandon it. Something haram that you struggle to abandon. Number 3 will be a good deed or something that's obligatory that you struggle to adopt. Something that you know is a good deed, something that you know you have to do, but you're struggling to do. And then number 4 is something that you do and you don't know why, and you just keep doing it. Something Islamic, obviously. Don't tell me like I have to walk into my bed backwards. I don't know why you do that. I cannot help you. Something Islamic. I may not be able to help you there either, but I'll try. So, option number 1, Islamic story, concept, a hadith that you struggle to accept intellectually, struggle to wrap your head around. Option number 2, a evil deed that you know is haram, but you struggle to abandon. Option number 3 is a deed that you know you have to be doing, an obligation, but you struggle to do. And then number 4 is something that you do and you don't know why, you feel nothing, it's kind of an empty action. So we're going to try to address those or some of them in light of this hadith, hadith number 41. What is hadith number 41? It is titled Alamatul Iman, the marker of faith or true faith, as we'll see. It's one of the last hadiths, it's number 41 out of 42. And in 41 and 42, Imam Nawawi wants to highlight the top 2 concepts to conclude his work. So as we've been going with the hadith, and inshallah, after we finish number 42, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, next week we'll have a conclusionary session the week after to kind of like look at them holistically and bring it all full circle. Imam Nawawi, like we've been saying, like we said in the very beginning, he didn't put together 42 hadith that he thinks sound good or are very important even. They're very tailored to nurturing faith and covering everything that a Muslim needs to know. And then also concluding with specific hadith in mind. So we're going to go over all that and break it down. But just for now, what is this hadith? Hadith number 41, عن عبد الله ابن عمرو ابن العاص رضي الله عنهما قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يكون هواه تبعا لما جئت به. The hadith is of Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, may Allah be pleased with him and his father, who said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, none of you believes, none of you has faith until your desires, till his desires becomes subservient or follows that which I have come with. It's a very short hadith. So, just like we saw with other hadith, which other hadith where the Prophet said, none of you believes, لا يؤمن أحدكم, none of you believes. Till you love for your brother what you love for yourself, right? So there's a lot of hadith that denounce faith. And like we said before, what does this mean? So if I don't love for Adam exactly as I love for myself, am I not a Muslim? Am I kafir now? It's deficient, right? I'm not there yet. I have to love for my brother exactly as I love for myself. So there's a deficiency there when I'm not there. But him saying none of you believes means none of you truly believes. We always translate it as truly, but the word truly is not there in Arabic. La yu'min, denouncing faith. He doesn't believe. But as we know, it's the full faith. So looking at this concept in the Quran now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فَلَا وَرَبِّكَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ حَتَّى يُحَكِّمُوكَ فِي مَا شَجَرَ بَيْنَهُمْ ثُمَّ لَا يَجِدُوا فِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَرَجًا مِمَّا قَضَيْتَ وَيُسَلِّمُوا تَسْلِيمًا. So I swear by your Lord, they do not truly believe until they take you as a judge in every single dispute that occurs between them, and then they find in themselves no qualms, no discrepancy about accepting it, whatever you decreed, and submitting to that wholeheartedly. وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَمْرًا أَنْ يَكُونَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَرَةُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِمْ. It is not befitting for any believing man or believing woman, once Allah and His Messenger decree in a matter, they pass judgment in a matter, that after that they have a choice in it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying that doesn't make sense for a believing man or a believing woman. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He described the hypocrites saying about them, ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ كَرِهُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأَحْبَطَ أَعْمَالَهُم, and ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ اتَّبَعُوا مَا أَسْخَطَ اللَّهُ وَكَرِهُوا رِضْوَانَهُ فَأَحْبَطَ أَعْمَالَهُم. They despised that which Allah revealed. So before we even talking about not doing it, opposing it, in their hearts they despised it. So what do we get from these ayat? True faith, 3 points. Number one, true faith, one of the markers of true faith here is that the Prophet ﷺ is the judge in every dispute. Every dispute means what? Any dispute where the sunnah has a say. Did the Prophet ﷺ teach us, does he have teachings or things to say in every situation? No. But if the sunnah has input here, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us it is not true faith that there's input in something that you're differing over, and then you don't go to that input from Allah and His Messenger. So this is the highlight number one from these verses. The second highlight is, not only do you turn to Him in the dispute, but then His teachings, they have to be completely accepted. تُسَلِّمُ تَسْلِيمًا. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions complete submissions, and He says they don't find in themselves haraj. Inside of them, there is no qualms about accepting this. And this is one of the highlights of the hadith that we want to focus on, which is the inside has to match the outside. That's kind of what it's all about. Conforming on the outside is good. It's the very beginning of faith. You have to conform on the inside. You don't have to just submit, you have to love it. You don't have to just say, I enjoy. You don't have to just say, I will push past the cold and the sleep and get up for Fajr as much as I hate it. That is good that you're able to do that. But Imam Nawawi wants to put hadith number 41 to let us know the ceiling you should strive for is not pushing past what you hate. You got to stop hating it. You got to love it. It's more beloved for me to wake up and get up in the cold than to sleep, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves it. I don't get up and say, oh, it's so cold, but I'm going to do it for Allah. We're not denouncing it. This is why Imam Nawawi put it as number 41. Because somebody might hear this, and this often happens when we have talks like this. They say, I pushed past myself, I put 50 alarms, and I got up, and you want to tell me I'm still bad? I'm still not doing a good job because I don't love it? Of course I don't love it. I want to go to sleep. No, you're doing good. This isn't for you. Keep pushing. This is for somebody now who's saying, I've been getting up for Fajr, alhamdulillah, consistently. What's the next step? The next step is now you got to love it. Why don't you get up even earlier? Sacrifice more sleep. Why? Why do I have to do that? Because ihsan, this hadith is here to teach us that ihsan is when you no longer ask the why. In your heart, you just love it because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves it, and that's a very high level. So this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing the believers in these same terms, and the hypocrites are described in the opposite. They hate what Allah revealed, and they chase after what displeases Him. So they're the complete opposite, and the inward is where it starts and is the focus. So love, devotion, faith, all these concepts that we've been talking about this whole time, they have inward and outward manifestations, and this hadith is about the inward. The outward is just about conformity. You do an action. But what about the inward? What is the sincerity? What is the reflection? What is the connection that you're maintaining with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through this action that is not equally important, it's more important. So the goal is not for them only to match, but ideally for the inward to be even better, but at least for them to match. The Sahaba, they came to the Prophet ﷺ and they said, we love Allah intensely. They just said it to him, like, we love Allah so much, like we're so grateful to be here and we believe in you. So when they had this conversation with him, Allah revealed a response to them. قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبُكُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ. Say to them, O Muhammad, if you truly love Allah, that claim that you're making, do what? How do you prove it? Follow me, and Allah will love you. So now this is now the opposite. They're claiming something on the inside, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, show me on the outside. This is to bring it back full circle to say Islam has both. Islam is about both. It's a lot of work. It's not easy, but it's worth it. You're aiming for the stars, right? This hadith coming here again at number 41 is to show us aim at the greatest of heights, because the lowest rung on the ladder is simple conformity in your physical actions. I'm not saying that to belittle your effort, but to let us all know that the majority of us struggle with the lowest rung of the ladder, which is conforming physically, waking up for Fajr, not eating haram. These are basic physical actions that are the lowest ring of the ladder, the lowest rung of the ladder. This is where faith starts. The ceiling of it is here, ihsan, and this is what it looks like. That you love, that your desire fully conforms and is subservient to what Allah revealed. When revelation comes, it automatically overrides what you feel. There's no dichotomy. There's no dilemma. There's no internal conflict right away. The Prophet ﷺ came out of his house one day and he found two men arguing. He said, why are you guys arguing? And then one man said, this man owes me money and today's the due date. And he's saying, I don't have it. So I'm saying, this is what we agreed on. The Prophet ﷺ said, forgive him. The man said, done. They were just mid-argument. He was saying, I'm not going to let you go. This is what we agreed on. The Prophet ﷺ comes out of nowhere and says, what are you guys arguing about? Just forgive him. He said, done. And they just go about, the day's over. The whole argument is done. What he wanted was his money back. In an instant, it's overridden by what the Prophet ﷺ said. Was that a religious injunction? Was the Prophet ﷺ saying, you must forgive him? It was a suggestion. It wasn't a fard. But that didn't register to him. When we discussed this last time, when Abdullah ibn Umar, radiallahu anhuma, he was arguing with his son, right, the grandson of Umar ibn Khattab. He's not a companion, he comes afterwards. So Abdullah ibn Umar is a companion, right? Him and his father, they met the Prophet ﷺ. When the Prophet ﷺ dies, Abdullah ibn Umar is like, 20 years old or so, late teens. So he was known for sticking to the sunnah to the T. Doing everything he saw the Prophet ﷺ do and like making it, that was what he's known for. So one day he's arguing with his son, his son is telling him, we want to prevent women from coming to the masjid. For a whole host of reasons, not important why. And Abdullah ibn Umar says, I heard the Prophet ﷺ with my own ears saying, don't prevent the female servants of Allah from coming to the houses of Allah. لا تمنعوا إماء الله من مساجد الله. So his son replies, no, we will stop them because, then he had other lists, here's the reason why. But then he responded to him, I told you the Messenger of Allah said something, and he said not to do something. You said we will do it. Forget the explanation why. I'll never speak to you again. He didn't speak to him till he died. That was the end of their relationship. He says, the Messenger of Allah said something. What opinion do you have at this point? And even if you have a reason, like he didn't say we hate women, or he had a reasoning, right? But he's saying, irrespective of it, the fact that you responded to a hadith with, no, I don't have anything to do with you, and he didn't till he died. He said, we're done. So it's the idea of overriding what we want with revelation is a very lofty status that this hadith is striving us to aim for. What does that look like? He said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in another hadith, ثلاث من كن فيه وجد حلاوة الإيمان أن يكون الله ورسوله أحب إليه مما سواهما وأن يحب المرء لا يحبه إلا لله وأن يكره أن يرجع إلى الكفر بعد إذ أنقذه الله منه كما يكره أن يلقى في النار. Three characteristics, when they are found in someone, they will taste the sweetness of faith. They're going to get up there. They're going to get to this lofty status that we're talking about. The first of them, and you're gonna see a very common, very easy common ground between all of them. The first of them is that Allah and His Messenger become more beloved to this person more than everything else. There's Allah and His Messenger, everything else comes afterwards. That he loves a person, he only loves him for the sake of Allah. And that he would hate to return to disbelief after Allah has saved him from it, the way he would hate to be thrown into a fire. Prophet is saying, you want to know if you're up there in your faith? Here's three markers. Number one, Allah and His Messenger are more beloved to you than anything else. Number one in your life. Number two characteristic he's putting here, you love someone purely for the sake of Allah, purely because of their righteousness, purely because of the connection that they offer you to Allah, to the masjid. There's no worldly benefit that you look forward to. There's no type of materialistic gain that you have from this relationship. It's purely for the sake of Allah. And the last thing is to despise, to be thrown into disbelief after being saved from it, the way that you would despise to be thrown into a fire. You know, when someone's being pushed into danger or fire, they're like trying all the means to prevent themselves from going into it. That's the imagery that's being drawn here. And in fact, may Allah preserve all of us, but when people are doing that, they do things they'd never do before, right? They may claw on things and their nails come off and they get bloody. Because at that point, it's no longer thinking, they're in survival mode, right? I can't get thrown into this dangerous situation. I can't get thrown to the fire. And they may not even notice that their hands are bleeding, but they're clawing for dear life. He's saying you hate to go back to kufr, and that's that imagery. Compare that to us today, where we'll talk about haram with a very strong nostalgia. Remember when we used to go there and do that? Yeah, great times. That's not fear of being thrown to a fire. That's wistful thinking. I wish we could do it again. That's waiting for the opportunity. That's dreaming of it. That's the flavor still in my mouth, and I wish I had another opportunity. That's basically the imagery that's being drawn here. That's not sincere faith, or it's not full faith. Leaving it is good. I got to keep reiterating that because people come at the end like, it took me forever to leave, and now you're saying my faith is incomplete. But at least it's there. You left it. That's good. Guess what? All of our faith, this is the ceiling. This is the ceiling that we're striving towards. None of us are there yet. So it is a goal, and it is not it is a journey and not a stop on the journey. So a lot of the times, we claim lip service about what's on the inside, but as we see with these hadith, they're showing us that it has to be holistic. It has to be on the inside and not the outside. It can never be one end or the other. So this was the first concept. Make the inside match the outside. Any questions? Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. So, it's not directly related to the hadith in the wording, but in the concept it is. So we're talking about getting there. In the beginning, you just conform. That's an important thing to highlight. In the beginning, you don't feel it as much. You don't have a lot of these greater concepts in mind. The sweetness of faith, the hatred of going back to kufr, the burning desire to get up for Fajr. No, it's a dread, right? It's a difficult thing to do for a lot of people in the beginning. That is normal. It's not a light switch that begins immediately as soon as you decide to take this journey. It is something that becomes easier as you go along. It becomes more attractive as you go along as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that whoever gives and believes in the truth and then gives from their wealth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it easier for them. So it becomes even more attractive. It is a positive feedback loop. So you just do it in the beginning, and then as it goes on, it should get easier and it should become more enjoyable. But if time has went on, and you've been doing this action, and it's either decreasing in sweetness or enjoyability or reflection, or it's stagnating, that should be a concern. So if you've been in Quran classes for months, and you memorize more, and you recite more, but the enjoyment is decreasing, the reflection is decreasing, that is a danger sign. If you just started praying, if you just started reciting Quran and it's not enjoyable just yet and you feel dread for it, keep working, keep conforming, you'll get there. You'll taste that sweetness of faith. But again, if you've been doing it for a while, and then it's either stagnating or decreasing, this is exactly what we're talking about, that the inside does not match the outside. Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, he wrote, it is obligatory upon every believer to love what Allah loves. It is a love that requires him to perform what Allah has made obligatory upon them. That's the first sign. Right? So it's back to that feedback loop that has to show on the outside in the obligations first and foremost. If the love increases such that one also performs what is recommended, that is more virtuous. So the next sign of that love, of the sincerity of this ihsan, is that they're going to do what's recommended. Going back to hadith number 38 or 39 about those who are close in their relationship to Allah. It is also obligatory upon every believer to dislike what Allah dislikes, a dislike that obliges him or her to remain away from what Allah has forbidden. If that dislike is increased such that it makes the person stay away from what is disliked, not just that which is forbidden, then that is more virtuous. Basically, the inside is going to reflect on the conformity of the outside. There's no way that the inside can be pure, that the person can claim righteousness, can claim the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can claim to be aligned in their faith, and it doesn't show in their actions. Imam Shafi'i, he wrote, تعصي الإله وأنت تظهر حبه هذا محال في القياس بديع لو كان حبك صادقا لأطعته إن المحب لمن يحب مطيع في كل يوم يبتديك بنعمة منه وأنت لشكر ذاك مضيع. You disobey the Lord, yet you claim His love so true. That is impossible. Reason knows it too. If your love were real, you'd obey His commands. For lovers heed their beloved, whatever he may demand. Each day He gives you blessings fresh and new, yet you forget to thank Him as their due. So they constantly highlighted this discrepancy between the inside and the outside, and that is the first point of the hadith. The second point that is not directly related is, at first it's okay, but later on there should be a warning sign if the inside doesn't match the outside. The last point is, if we look in our deen, in the tradition, the third point and the last point of this hadith is, if when we look in our deen, the ayat and the hadith, we will find that desire, your nafs, is always portrayed in a negative light. وَلَا تَتَّبِعِ الْهَوَى فَيُضُلَّكَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Don't follow desires, it'll misguide you from the path of Allah. وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى. As for the one who fears the standing in front of their Lord and prevents their soul from its desire, then they'll go to Jannah. فَإِن لَمْ يَسْتَجِيبُوا لَكَ فَعَلَمْ أَنَّمَا يَتَّبِعُونَ أَهْوَاءَهُم. If they don't respond to you, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then they're only following their desires. It's constantly being portrayed in a negative light. Right? There's always this juxtaposition or contradiction between following your desires and deen. There was a story of a man. Probably shouldn't say this story. Why not? You're right. He was making tawaf around the Kaaba. You ready? Has to be a good story, right? The Kaaba is a great place. And he locks eyes with an attractive woman. So people are people at the end of the day. The Kaaba is the holiest place on earth, but people are people. So they kind of like slide next to each other. You know how in tawaf, like you align with people if you've made tawaf? This is for the wrong reasons, I know, but I didn't write this story. I'm just reading it. So he walks next to her and he says, أهوى هوى الدين واللذات تعجبني. My desire is the desire of the religious life. But pretty things delight me. Like, I like pretty things. He's saying, like, I'm being tempted. Yeah, this is the worst, right? But there's a point to it, I promise. It's going somewhere. فَكَيْفَ لِي بِالْهَوَى اللَّذَّاتِ وَالدِّينِ. So how can I have that which I desire, the pretty things that I'm looking after, and the deen at the same time? He's saying, I want to be religious, but I'm distracted by pretty things. I want both, right? So she responds to him, and she says, دَعْ أَحَدُهُمَا تَنَالُ الْآخَرِ. Leave one of them, you'll have the other. Can't be both, right? It's either you're going to be religious or you want the pretty things. Make up your mind. It's either you're going to chase after your desires or you choose to be religious. If you say that you want both, you're going to have neither. You're going to end up with neither of them. Another version of the story, there's two of them, he answers, he's the one who keeps going on his own in the poetry, and he says, نَفْسِي تُزَيِّنُ لِلدُّنْيا وَزِينَتَهَا وَزَاجِرِي مِنْ حِذَارِ الْمَوْتِ يُثَبِّتُنِي. That even though my soul entices me to the worldly things and the glitter of the world, it makes it even more beautiful, my chastiser is the reminder of death, and that always keeps me firm. So the good guy in the story changes depending which narration you read and which gender you're speaking to. Leave one and you'll have the other is the point of that story. Everybody understood it. Everybody who was awake realized you're not going to have both. It's impossible. Leave one and you have the other. Just don't trick yourself into that dichotomy. Don't trick yourself into saying, I can have both of them. I can have my religious life here, and then I can have my outside life there. And I know the conclusion that a lot of people say, fine, I'll ditch the religious life. That's not the answer either. That's also wrong, and you know it. We all do. So there's no reason to pull the wool over our own eyes, create this false dilemma. Choose one and you have the other. She was right. So the point of bringing this up was what, Muhammad? The point of bringing this up was the desires in our tradition are always mentioned in a negative light. But here the Prophet ﷺ is saying in this hadith that you don't truly believe until your desire follows what I was revealed. So what gives? Desire is always mentioned negatively. You have to fight it. But he's here saying true faith doesn't occur inside of you until your desire agrees with what I. If I'm always commanded with fighting it, how's it supposed to one day be an ally? How's it supposed to one day be a good thing that it follows the Prophet ﷺ when I'm constantly commanded with fighting it? Like isn't that a contradiction? Yeah. I didn't hear that. I didn't hear your second part. You fought it, and then what happens? And now they give in to you? Okay. Any other takes? Yeah, Sarah? When does it get easier? At what point? Do you notice it getting easier? Is it one day after 5 Ramadans, boom, it's like it decreases? Did it get easier for people who started practicing and now they're more practicing than they used to be? Is it easier? Is your desire more subservient to revelation, or is it less subservient? What you want and what you dream of and your goals, are they more in line with the deen now that you've been on the deen scene for a year, 2 or 5, or however long you've been here? Or are they less? Are they more of a challenge? You don't have to answer out loud, but you should answer it to yourself. If the answer is more, it's a problem. If it's less, even if it's not ideal, even if there's tons to work on, that's fine. That always has to be the case. The day that you say it's ideal, there's nothing to work on, that in of itself is a huge red flag. So once you gauge it that yes, it is getting easier, that's the answer. It's not going to become fully subservient, because if it did, now you're a Sahabi. It's a process. Over time, it becomes easier. Ibn Jawzi, he says, rahmahullah, that your soul is like a mount. He says the intelligent believer doesn't abandon the reins of his soul. It's like a mount. And he doesn't neglect the bridle. The bridle is, you use it to turn, right? And the reins, you use it to, they're all, the bridle is attached to the face, and the reins is the rope that goes behind. Without it, what happens if you don't touch this thing at all? If you don't touch the reins or the bridle, what happens? The horse goes wherever it wants. So you need to control it, he says. At times, loosening the grip. As long as what? What would make me, as long as it's going straight? I don't have to be harsh with myself. I can be nice with myself. Yeah, there's something called self-love. It's not in the way that they say it, for sure. They're tripping, but there's something called self-love, and there's something called taking it easy on yourself. I'm going to loosen the reins right now because it's on the right path. If he sees it deviating, he redirects it, what? If the horse starts to deviate, what's the first step? You bring out the whip and break its head? He says he redirects it gently. If it responds, good. If it doesn't respond, he starts to use force. He says, treat yourself like that. How far do you want to go when it comes to disciplining your soul? To love what Allah loves and to hate what Allah hates. It's up to you. Because the people who make it a goal in their mind, the sky's the limit. I saw an alarm clock from the time period of the Ottomans. It's going to be hard to describe. I have a board here. That'll probably be easier. I don't know if anyone's seen this. An alarm clock from 300-400 years ago. What's the missing component of an alarm clock from 304 years ago? You're right, guys. Electricity. Good job. So it's a candle. Right? This is what it is. And there's a nail sticking out of it here, a nail sticking out of it here, and a nail sticking out of it here, and here's the fire. This is actually better than I thought it would come out. Good job, Mohammad. It may not be impressive to you, but I'm an audience of one, so. What's the point of the nails? Yeah, it's a snooze alarm. So the first alarm is for tahajjud, the second one's the end of the time of tahajjud, and the third one is for fajr. So they calculate the amount of time it takes wax to burn to get to the next nail. And then calculate it according to the tahajjud time, the last third of the night, and then to fajr time. They were determined, right? People realized this is important. I need to discipline this soul. It loves sleep. Well, we got to figure it out. The whole science of astronomy that exists today, mapping of the stars, was born out of our ummah, out of people trying to better do what? Find the qibla and count salah time. A whole science and the world was created out of it because of people who were trying to discipline their souls, use whatever's around. People say, I've tried everything. I set 3 snooze alarms, right? And to them, that's like, I've done what was unthinkable. Why is my soul still not there yet? Well, you're not determined about disciplining it. That's really the bottom line. Or else you would have kept looking for things. You would have never been satisfied until it led you to where you needed to go. Abu Yazid al-Bistami rahimahullah, he says, I kept driving my soul to Allah while it was weeping until one day it drove me while it laughed. I had to keep whipping it. It wasn't pleasant. Abu Muslim al-Khawlani, he becomes Muslim and is unable to go to Medina. He's from Yemen. And he misses the opportunity to go to Medina. He arrives at the death of Abu Bakr. So he missed everything. And he comes in the time of Umar ibn Khattab. And he meets the Sahaba, and he was Muslim from early on. He becomes Muslim during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. He just never has the means to make it to Medina. He arrives, and it's too late. Everything's over. And he used to pray all night long. He would pray all night long, every single night. That was his norm. He never would sleep in the day, in the night, a small portion of the day, and he would just pray all night long. And he would have a whip by his bed that he would use to whip his legs when they fell asleep. And he would say, whenever he would do this, as he's praying, he would say, أَيَظُنُّ أَصْحَابُ مُحَمَّدًا أَنْ يَسْتَأْثِرُوا بِهِ دُونَنَا. Do the companions of Muhammad ﷺ think that they will have exclusive access to him besides us? Like, I couldn't make it physically, fine, but on the Day of Judgment, do they think that they'll crowd around him and we won't be there? He says, we're going to push them. So wake up, because I want Allah to know that my heart was there, you fell asleep. My heart was there, my body didn't keep up. That's why I'm whipping it. It's not of self-injury or self-flagellation. That's not what he's doing. He's saying, I'm proving to Allah that my heart was in the right place and my body just couldn't keep up. So how far do you go to discipline your soul? What is the ceiling? Don't forget our example in the Sahaba, where you see how far it went, where it was not even about worship anymore. It was not even about pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anymore. They got to such an extent that their hearts just shift immediately. We have the hadith of Anas, just one small example. It's endless, really, examples of the love they had for him sallallahu alaihi wasallam and how his decisions and his preferences took the place of theirs. But we have the hadith of Anas where he says, I seen the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was eating a dish and he was following the pieces of pumpkin. And ever since then, it was the most beloved food to me. I do the same thing. Just immediately their hearts shifted when they saw that he loved something, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When they saw something that he preferred, their hearts immediately aligned, fell into orbit, into that gravity, were compelled to orbit around Allah and His Messenger all the time. That's where we want to get to. That happens with years of discipline. That happens with pushing yourself to whatever capacity you can all the time to obey and fall in line with Allah and His Messenger. Then eventually you love it and it becomes effortless. How do you practice this? 4 steps. I'm not going to write them on the board. If you guys don't mind, you can just write them yourself. Number 1 is you find your block. What's blocking you from doing this? And there's 3 options here. I'll just write them because lists need to be written. Fine. I get it. Now that I look at it again, it's not so pretty. I get it. It looked better the first time. So what's blocking you from this? It's going to be a couple of possibilities. Number 1 is an intellectual block. What does that mean? Huh? Something you don't know. Why can't I, that's why I said in the beginning, and we'll get to the Slido, why can't I do this action? Why are my legs wet? The wipes? I said on the wipes? All right, I'm not getting up again. So, if it's intellectual, number 1 is find your block. It's not intellectual. The first block is intellectual. Just walk backwards. Find your block is the first one. What's blocking you from either implementing this action or feeling it or abandoning this action? Is it A, intellectual? You just don't know. I didn't know this was haram. I didn't know this was fard. Then the solution to that is the easiest. Go find it out. right? I don't feel like I'm connecting with my salah. I don't feel like, I heard that this was haram and I can't accept it. I heard this about the Prophet ﷺ and I can't accept it. So go find out more about that subject. Read it inside out. Research it before you give into this feeling and question your faith, or in whatever direction you head, go find out more. Maybe you just didn't research it enough. There's missing information, or there's information that you have but misunderstand. So go ask and find out. Number 2 is emotional. It's an emotional block. What does that mean? What does it mean? Huh? What's an emotional block? Said something? Are you sad about something? Yeah. You have your own personal problems. I once sat somewhere in a, let me not give it to any details actually, but I sat somewhere for a long time discussing like proofs of God's existence and like responding to different atheist rhetoric for hours. Literal hours. And just from a back and forth with this person, what was the conclusion? And I'm not worried about throwing this out there because there's tons of people like this, unfortunately. So the story matches more than one person. The conclusion after literal hours of back and forth with atheist rhetoric and responses was like, everything you just said makes sense. I was like, all right, alhamdulillah, so that you don't have any problems with faith anymore. No, they're all the same. Why? After a few more hours of discussing, the real problem is the most religious person that I ever met my entire life and the paragon of religion is my father, and he made life a living hell for my family. That's the conclusion we arrived at after like 6-7 hours of talking. So the block was purely emotional. He didn't need me, he needed a therapist, right? He needed to figure it out. I don't mean that sarcastically, it just came out like that, I'm sorry. But like, he needed to figure out his emotional problem. He needed social services, not me. And then once he figures that out, the deen, all of it will just click because he doesn't have a problem with it. So that happens. How often do you think that happens? 99.9% of the time, it's an emotional block. It's with a Muslim, with a non-Muslim, accepting Islam, starting to pray, obeying parents, putting on hijab, whatever the problem is, there's an emotional story there. They just don't want to share it yet, or they don't even know it yet. That's also a possibility. But that's like the majority of the time. The Prophet ﷺ passed by Abu Jahl and Mughira ibn Shu'bah, and they have a back and forth. Abu Jahl is extremely rude and disgusting, as he usually is, and the Prophet ﷺ leaves. He turns to Mughira and he says, I know that he's 100% telling the truth. Mughira's like, wait, what was that conversation then? What just happened? He said, let me tell you a story. Banu Makhzum, my tribe, and Banu Hashim, his tribe, are like this. Our whole history, we're like this. They fed the pilgrims, we fed them. They're warriors, we're warriors. They're poets, we're poets. We're never let that tribe pass us. This is our purpose in life, to compete with this tribe. One day they said, we have a prophet from Allah who receives revelation. And we had no answer. Because we couldn't say me too, because it's not how it works. So we said we'll never believe in him over our dead bodies. And that's where we are till today. So Abu Jahl had no problem from day one believing La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. He believed it in his heart. He didn't conform on the outside. And as we just saw in this hadith, you need both. But what was his block? It was an emotional baggage. The last one is, and this is serious, is your own personal sins. You don't have any personal trauma. You have all the information you need, but there's a sin that you're committing that's making a block here, and you need to make tawbah from that specific sin for that block to be released, for you to access a higher level of faith, for your own desire to be a little bit more malleable to what Allah reveals. Right now it's resisting. Right now there's a discrepancy because in the middle there's that sin stopping a complete synergy. Yes? Well, you'll never know what it is in particular till you make tawbah from that sin, and all of a sudden you go from here to here. Your salah goes from here to here. That sin was what was blocking you, but you'd never know for sure. But any sin has that potential. General tawbah all the time is to go to, and then specific tawbah to be always nitpicking, combing our lives for sins. We shouldn't have to comb too hard to find them. Number 2 is you address that block. Find it is number 1, because that's a whole process. And then number 2 is to address it. So if it's intellectual, go learn about that specific topic. If it is emotional, go solve your problems. It's okay, we all have them. If it is a personal sin, then you make tawbah, and that is step number 1, or that's step number 2. After finding your block, you address it. Step number 3 is constant tazkiyah. Irrespective of any blocks, you're just always in the process of tazkiyah, purifying your soul, trying to reflect more, trying to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be more sincere, improve the quality of your tawakkul, improve the quality of your hope in Allah, revisiting all this material. That's what tazkiyah is all about. That's just a process that has to be ongoing for you to evolve in your faith all the time. And then number 4 is consistent, determined practice. Riyada. It's translated as riyada, which is activity, exercise. You know how you do math exercises? Right? It's the same thing. Do dhikr exercises. I'm going to sit down. Have you ever sat and made dhikr for 200, 300? If you've never done it before, try. When you hit 150, you're going to be like, I feel like I'm saying gibberish, like my tongue is kind of slipping on itself. That's just like the gym where you hit the lower pounds, you'll on the lower ones, not me, and then you can't go because you've hit your limit, and now you're stuck, right? Then the next time you evolve past it. So likewise, consistent, determined practice in the same way that we do in everything in this worldly life. If you've never sat down and read 5 pages of Quran, of course it's a far-fetched dream that you'll sit down and read 20. If you've never made dhikr 100 times, it's far-fetched that you can hear these stories of all these other people doing it for hours and say, this is way beyond me. This level of faith is not even possible. Well, you need to do riyada, you need to practice, and that is never done. What happens to somebody who goes to the gym and just like picks up something, tomorrow comes back, picks up something else? Do they gain any weight? Or do they gain any muscle? There has to be a plan, right? There has to be numbers that are recorded. Bring that same energy to your faith. It's not a mystery. Some people say, yeah, some people have high faith, some people have low faith. You just gotta, shoot in the dark, and that's not how it works. There's some people who are methodological about it, and they follow, is methodological the right word? Methodical? Maybe methodical is probably the right word. And they follow along, and they take notes, and they have metrics, and they keep track, and their faith develops accordingly. So, number 1, find your block. Is it intellectual, emotional, or personal sins? Number 2 is you address that block through gaining knowledge, through solving personal trauma, or through tawbah. And then number 3 is the process of tazkiyah has to be constant all the time. Number 4 is determined practice with metrics, with apps, with peers, whatever you need to regularly evolve and level up in your faith, such that hearing a hadith like this is not just some kind of, far-fetched or abstract concept. It's actually a goal that you're working towards and progressing towards. My faith is increasing. My desires are more subservient to revelation. None of these concepts are abstract or foreign or just unreachable. They have actual roadmaps that I'm taking towards them. Questions, comments, concerns? Abdullah? Abdullah, right? Sorry, it's, remind me your name, Akhi? Yes, Ahmed. I apologize. Ahmed, you had a question? Number 3, which is constant tazkiyah, constant purification of the soul. Anybody? Let's look at the Slido. If you have any questions, feel free to send them there or to raise your hands. Let's look at the Slido, if people populate it, and address it with these steps at the end. Women have to obey men at home. I love it. So I said, tell me the issue and why. So this doesn't have a why. Let's explore it together. We have how long for Isha? We have 9 minutes, 19 for the Iqamah. I will try to tackle as many of these as possible. So far, we have women have to obey men at home. Why should I keep spending time with my family when they keep doing haram and it's showing in their kids? I don't quite understand why men are allowed 4 wives. Why women can't read Quran during menses? I know it's a major impurity, but shouldn't we also get to feel connected? If you have younger siblings that don't pray salah or respect you in any way, what should I do? To my siblings? How to set boundaries, with your family if they are toxic and cause you harm. What should I do if my family doesn't respect Islam, like they don't have Islam in their heart and they disrespect or mock it? Great questions. We obviously won't be able to do all of them, but upvote the ones that you guys like. Women have to obey men at home. Since they didn't specify what's the block, let's look at them from every angle, which will probably take the whole time, but let's see how far we get. A, intellectually. What is the information that we need here? So we have, it really depends actually on what the block is. So I'm going to go general. I may hit the point of contention. I may not, but that's, you can add it there. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الرِّجَالُ قَوَّمُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ. Men, they have a position of authority over women. And he mentions why. Because they are financially responsible. They are fiscally responsible for the entire household. And with that is not just the financial decisions, but the decisions that are attached to it, which are what the finances buy, where we live and what we do. So with great power comes great responsibility, just like Uncle Ben said to Peter Parker as he was dying. So it is a part of what is the purpose of responsibility without authority. Is that feasible? You are going to be answerable for every sayor. You have to answer for everybody in the front row. Like how much notes they take, how much attention they pay. And then what comes with that? Zero authority. You're responsible for their output, but you have zero authority over its quality, or you can't tell them where to sit. Would you take that job? You'd say, no, that's not a fair job, right? Because if they don't take notes, what authority do I have to make them take notes? What ability do I have to produce these results? So this is a role that the man was given, and likewise the women were given a role. It's different, and it is supplementary. It is equally important, but is different. So this is in brief the intellectual reasoning, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them a responsibility. With that responsibility, the matching authority. If the responsibility is not fulfilled, the authority is it's useless. Meaning a woman could take her husband to court, he does not pay rent. So, and then the demands come afterwards, pay rent, divorce me, or whatever, right? So this isn't, you'll find this in Islamic law. The responsibility, if it's not fulfilled, the authority is not going to be respected. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. So that's the intellectual. Emotional. There's tons of Muslim males who do it wrong, just like there's tons of Muslim females who do it wrong. And they use Islam to justify their wrongdoing on both sides. That really is the summary of it. People may not like it, that's so simple, that is really the summary of it. Bring me any story where somebody used Islam to, in an argument or in some kind of conflict in the family, and you'll easily highlight where they went wrong. It's not hard to do. You take one basic fiqh class, maybe not one, but you'll take one or two, and then it's easy, like when these common claims that people bring. It's not how the court case, and it's not how Sharia law works. Sharia law works very different to what 99% of Muslims think. So once you learn that, you see that no, it's a just system and it makes sense. And every single story where someone tells you, let me tell you why Islam oppresses women or oppresses the wife, the answer to that is the man in that story did wrong and Islam was misused. That it's always the answer, 100% of the time. It's never like, look, let me explain why Islam made this ruling that harmed you. It's never been my experience, of course, which is a limited experience, but I'm usually right about everything. So that's the emotional. Personal sins, self-explanatory. Just because we address the block in this fashion doesn't mean everybody will be satisfied with it. Because someone could hear all this and still reject it. Maybe it wasn't enough, wasn't intellectual enough, it was done quickly on the mic, it needs to be more personal. There's a whole host of reasons here that can be approached. But whoever asked this question, if you found any holes in anything we said, please do mention it. You're anonymous, so we can't kick you out as much as we want to. But we will we'll address the concerns that you bring up if they weren't properly answered. Why can't women read Quran during menses? I know it's a major impurity, but shouldn't we also get to feel connected? This is a longer discussion because it's fiqh, but the short answer is it's a difference of opinion fiqh-wise. So according to the Maliki opinion, it is not impermissible. Well, first of all, why is it impermissible? The majority of scholars who said it was impermissible, the Shafi'i, the Hanafis, and a group of the Hanbali scholars, they said it's impermissible doing qiyas, which is analogy to the one who is in janaba, sexual impurity. So they said the same way that that's a major impurity that needs ghusl before it can be lifted, and Quran for sure can be recited in that state, according to that opinion. Then similarly, menstruation. What's the difference between sexual impurity and menstruation? Which is what the Malikis say, and Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, who sides with the Malikis even though he was traditionally Hanbali. What's the discrepancy here? What do you guys think? It's not an option. Sexual impurity is an option. An option to enter into it, an option to lift it. Menstruation, neither one is optional. And that is the major difference. This person cannot recite Quran, they can lift that any moment, choose reciting, while this other person, not this other person, this entire 50% of the population is now being stopped from reciting Quran a week, a month, for their whole lives, essentially. They said, how's this? These are two starkly different situations. And this one is a huge harm, while this person just exits janaba within minutes and it goes back to reciting the Quran, the analogy is not sound. So my whole point in here is just to say there's a whole discussion here. So there's the Hanbali opinion of reciting it under your breath without being loud, so the person next to you can't discern the words. So you're still reciting but quiet to yourselves. And it's even that opinion when it comes to sexual impurity as well, not just janaba from or impurity from menstruation. There's the Maliki opinion that's straight up allowed no matter what. There's a contemporary opinion as well that's not in the classical opinions, but they said for people who are prone to recite Quran all the time, like Quran students or Quran teachers, and it'll be extremely difficult for 1 week, a month, every single month, then that's fine. That's like a contemporary opinion, to be fair. Contemporary opinion should always be taken with tons of salt because they're contemporary, and that's a red flag in and of itself sometimes. And so on and so forth. So the point in here is that it's a big discussion, and it's not for sure that women are not allowed to recite Quran on their menses. It's a very controversial topic, controversial in the sense of there's back and forth and it's not concrete. So if anybody were to feel strong reservation towards this opinion, what would I tell them? Recite Quran. I just go with the other one. It's fine. This shouldn't be a barrier to your faith because it's not a fundamental part of our faith. It's not for sure. It doesn't mean you choose what you want. When there's not for sure, we choose whatever opinions we want. We do it under scholarly tutelage. But with that being said, we don't equate that with the entire faith because that's injustice. This isn't revelation. This isn't what Allah and His Messenger said. The hadith doesn't apply to this. Not fully, at least. Sounds good, everybody? Nod your heads, making me feel better. We did 2. Let's do 3 and we'll call it a day. Should we do 4 wives? Family? Keep it juicy. Toxic family? If you're in a Quran class, can you hold the Quran if you're on a menstrual cycle? So touching the Quran, that's like a lot more manageable. Hold the digital copy. Hold it with a barrier. So that's a lot easier to manage. So recitation, I can see the difficulty, or not I, the scholars have seen the difficulty, and I'm sharing with you their opinion, but I haven't heard the same when it comes to holding the Quran, because that's a lot easily managed. A, you hold the digital copy. B, you hold it with a barrier, like a glove or something. Or C, you hold something that is not the majority Quran. So anything that the majority of the words in this book are not the words of Allah is not considered a mushaf. So any book that has tafsir in it, tafsir far outnumbers the words of the Quran here. Even though the whole Quran is in this book, but the majority of the words in this book is not Quran, it's no longer a mushaf. It can be held without wudu or in a state of janaba. So that's not really a block, but glad we got that one out of the way. Okay. I don't know. I just don't know. We'll call it a day because it's adhan time. Play it safe. Yeah, we're going to end here. Jazakumullah khair, everyone. Sallallahu barak ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah, 41 hadith later, we're here.